There is a strange kind of time travel hidden in an old drawer, waiting beneath paper, fabric, and a thin layer of dust. You turn over a faded photograph, and suddenly someone who is gone from this moment is standing there again. The image has not aged, but you have. That small difference is where the whole mystery begins. Under the lamp, the photo becomes a tiny stage where one version of life has stopped moving. It does not simply show the past, it asks what happened to the person who kept living. A printed photo is such an ordinary thing that we forget how strange it is to keep faces in boxes. We store them beside receipts, letters, cloth, and forgotten keys, as if time were another household object. Today, images usually move fast. We swipe through hundreds, barely letting any single moment become heavy. But an old print resists that speed. It has corners, weight, damage, and a silence you can touch. That may be why it feels different from a file. It asks your hand to participate. A phone can show 1,000 pictures, but the drawer makes one image feel like it was waiting. The object becomes a door, not because it opens the past, but because it changes the present room. Long before photography, humans were already making traces, marks, tokens, painted forms, and objects kept close. We should be careful not to pretend all ancient images meant one thing. Human evidence is rarely that simple. But across cultures and centuries, people have often tried to give absence a surface. A mark on a wall, a carved object, a kept cloth, each can say, something mattered here. Portraits later gave that wish a new form. A person could sit still and become an image. Early photographs demanded patience. Bodies held themselves in place while light slowly gathered a visible trace. The result was not only a likeness, it was a social object, something families could display, carry, or hide. Albums turned images into household memory, ranging faces into sequences that felt almost like belonging. A photo in a wallet made distance smaller. A portrait on a shelf made absence share the room. In that sense, old photos belong to a much older human habit, keeping traces near the body. The materials changed from stone to paint to paper to glass to pixels. The wish underneath remained familiar. We want the vanished moment to leave behind something that can still meet our hand. That is the ancient mirror inside the modern drawer, a human need to touch what time removes. Psychology gives this mystery another layer. A photograph can act as a cue for autobiographical memory. It does not usually return the past like a perfect recording. Memory is more active than that. It may be more accurate to say memory reconstructs using objects, emotions, places, and fragments of detail. One sleeve, one chair, one patch of sunlight can pull an entire room back into attention. Nostalgia often feels warm, but it is not simply happiness. It can carry longing inside the warmth. Researchers have suggested that nostalgia can connect memory, emotion, identity, and social belonging in complicated ways. That is why a small picture can feel larger than the paper that holds it. The face matters, but sometimes the background matters more. The lamp, the kitchen, the street, the old shirt. These details become handles. Your mind touches them and begins rebuilding a world around them. Yet the rebuilt world is not identical every time. Each remembering happens from the life you have now. So the old photo stays fixed, while the memory around it quietly changes shape. This is where the tenderness becomes unsettling. The paper is stable, but the self looking at it is not. A photograph seems to promise preservation, but what it actually preserves is only one surface of a moment. History made that surface more available. Portraits once belonged to fewer people, fewer rooms, fewer occasions. Then cameras entered ordinary life, and faces began to travel into albums, wallets, drawers, and frames. Family albums became private museums, but not neutral ones. They arranged what a household wanted to remember. A mantle portrait, a fridge photo, a picture tucked in luggage, each gives memory a location. Photography helped turn identity into something portable. A face could move when the person was far away. That portability changed absence. Someone could leave the room and still remain visible on paper. Later, digital images multiplied the archive until memory became almost too abundant to feel. And yet one damaged print can still feel heavier than 1,000 perfect files. Maybe scarcity is part of its power. The old photo survived accidents, moves, dust, and forgetting. It has been carried by rooms, hands, boxes, and years. Its damage becomes part of its voice. The curling edge says the image belongs to time, even while the scene inside refuses to move. Every old photo is both a preservation and a loss, because it saves one moment by separating it from life. That separation is what we feel when we look from the image back to the room around us. The person in the photo may be younger, gone, changed, or simply unreachable in that exact form. Even when the person is you, the image can feel like someone else wearing your history. You recognize the posture, the clothing, the room, but not the distance that has opened since then. An old photo can make identity feel less like a solid object and more like a series of versions. One version is smiling in sunlight, another is sitting in the dark, holding the evidence. The ache comes from the gap between them. The image did not move, but life did. Sometimes you cover part of the face and still feel the person through a gesture or background. That is because memory is not only about faces, it lives in objects, rooms, light, and touch. A plant grows beside the old print, the paper curls. The living world keeps changing round the stopped one. Outside, a streetlight replaces the old sunlight in the picture. Two kinds of time share one room. The border of the photo becomes a boundary. Inside, a moment remains. Outside, everything continues. This is why old photos can feel philosophical before we have words for them. They ask whether the self is something we keep or something we repeatedly become. The younger figure in the image is not false, but it is also not complete. It may be a mirror arriving late, showing a version of you that no longer answers directly. A photo can make absence visible without solving it. That is its strange mercy. It gives the lost moment a shape, but not a way back into the world. So we do not simply remember through photographs, we negotiate with them. We ask the paper for presence, and it gives us a trace. We ask for return, and it gives us light. Now the drawer from the beginning is no longer just storage. It is a small room of unfinished meetings. You lift the photo again, and the ache feels less like a wound than a form of attention. The faces may remain blurred, but the feeling is clear. Someone was here, and time continued. The photograph cannot bring that version back. It can only let you stand near it for a moment. Memory is not storage. It is a quiet negotiation with absence, held gently under a lamp.